So we were able to kind of chat with me a bit about what relationships mean to me and as far as what people are for in life. And now we can hear a little bit from Brayden here about what relationships mean to him and where they've brought him in life. I know across the country for him as well. So let's hear what you have to say, Brayden.
Well, I mean, starting as a kid, like personally, me and my dad always had like a really good relationship. He was my coach in a lot of ways, even if he wasn't my coach, you know, yelling at me from the sidelines, putting me in sports early. I really got that sense of what relationships mean to me from a young age and like sports and stuff like that, whether it be like U6 soccer all the way to like now at CMU. I've been here and there, and I don't think I would have gotten anywhere in life without meeting people and, you know, helping me along the way. I think the relationships that have affected me in life have definitely made me a better person. I've learned a lot from everybody that I've known, whether it just be little tidbits or whether they're taking me under their wing and mentoring me. So personally, I think people are for relationships. I personally think I am for relationships. And I strongly believe that navigating through life, you need to have a good, strong support system and a good group of friends and family to help you get there, for sure.
Absolutely. And I know volleyball brought you originally from Winnipeg growing up,
Right.
obviously, until you were able to kind of make some decisions once you left high school
Right.
and move across the country to Alberta
Right.
was the first step for you.
Yeah, big time.
So moving out there, I'm sure was a little daunting. You don't know anybody.
Right.
You're kind of alone in a sense. And then once you left Alberta, you're kind of scared to leave again because you've built those relationships, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that just goes to make the point.
Yep.
Through sports, you were able to build relationships with people you had no clue who they were before you showed up.
Absolutely.
Coaches, teammates, mentors, I'm sure profs even throughout the process. And then you kind of picked up and came out here to Hamilton, to Mohawk with me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And once you left Mohawk, kind of same thing. You went into Mohawk. I remember I invited you over to my place when you first got here. Didn't know anybody.
Yep. Absolutely.
You know, introduced you to the whole new group of random people.
Yep.
And then fast forward like 3-4 years when you left Hamilton, it stunk to leave.
Yeah.
Because you developed those relationships.
Yeah, I feel like that was the hardest thing, was saying bye to everybody. But going into it, like how you said, just bringing up Mohawk. Personally, I took a gap year when I really didn't want to, between like Alberta, like just after high school, and here, and I worked in a kitchen, just a minimum wage job. It was really chill, but the connections that we had throughout everybody, I could have made a lot more money, but I just wanted to stay because we had such a tight-knit group of friends. And then fast forward going to like just about to leave to Hamilton, Ontario to go to Mohawk College, I didn't want to leave because I was like, I just love these people so much. Like, what am I doing? I'm just like wasting this away. And I decided to make that jump through my relationship with volleyball and wanting to like make that the biggest part of my life. So fast forward, I originally came to Mohawk because one of my old teammates was the head coach now for Mohawk College Mountaineers. And I didn't really know anybody except for him coming into coming into the situation. So right after I got here, Dan here, he hit me up, he gave me a little shout, and he was having a little bit of a gathering at his house. So it was great. It just allowed me to like network and just kind of dip my toes in the water of what Ontario was, and help me get better at making friends and relationships. And obviously all Dan's friends come in with that relationship, that thought process on relationships, that any friend of Dan is a friend of mine. So
Absolutely.
These guys were all great to me. We went out, had a couple of waters, and really just bonded. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, for sure.
And then fast forward to us playing in the same volleyball team. That was just straight up a brotherhood, and that's something I'll never forget in my life. I'll take that wherever I go. All the lessons, all the ups and the downs. You know, no two relationships are the same. But at the end of the day, I feel like they're all just as important, because there's something to teach there, and there's something to learn for when you're growing up into the future, right? Because
positive and negative.
Exactly, for sure. And I don't think that any relationship is really as genuine if it's always just positive. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it might be great if you could find a person that you always agree with and that you always have fun with, but it's great to find people that you don't always agree with and that you do kind of have problems and issues with, because it kind of teaches you how to navigate through conflict and a little bit more uncomfortable of times, you know? So I think that going on to what you said about how leaving from Mohawk, I definitely had a bunch of relationships that were either really great, and I had a couple of relationships that were just straight up terrible, and I had relationships that were kind of in between in the middle, and I feel like they all taught me what I wanted for myself, what I didn't want for myself. Obviously, taking by example on how friends were handling with their own situations, it taught me to like learn a lot faster opposed to having to go through trial and error in myself, right?
Yeah.
Because we were all just a group of guys kind of in the same place, you know? We don't really know what we want to do in our life. We feel like we're all kind of coming in there alone and we don't really know what to do. And just through that brotherhood of volleyball and that support system and those relationships that we had, I think that really shaped us and turned us into great people. So yeah, that was super important.
And it shows even after our time at Mohawk was spent together, a lot of our team is spread out across the country now.
Yeah.
And just us right now being together shows how important that relationship was back in the day.
Absolutely.
And like I said earlier, like I'm living in Alberta, he's living in Winnipeg, and something happens that's a little bit more unfortunate, but it brought us together.
Yep, absolutely.
And most people, when we're done playing volleyball together, most people I'd say would stop talking. And we aren't in that situation together anymore, so we got to go our separate ways. But
Right.
This is one relationship between us that kind of just held steady, and we kept FaceTiming,
Yeah, through
kept
the power of
kept in
FaceTime
each other's
and text messages, man. Yeah.
kept in each other's lives. And I remember when you were in that in-between period between staying in Hamilton or going back home to CMU, there was a lot of talk between us as to what the right play for you was. And ultimately it came down to you needed that core relationship with your family back.
Absolutely.
Because you still had it. They're your family. They'll always be there for you, but you're in another province.
And it doesn't really feel as strong if I'm FaceTiming and whatnot. Like, not that there's anything wrong with FaceTiming and texting, you know what I mean? We've stayed very close throughout the
Absolutely.
years too. But when it's someone that you love as much as like your mom and dad, I have a brother who just turned 18. When I first left for Lakeland, he was 11. So it makes it a little bit strange, you know? And I felt that I was just really missing out on that. I didn't really feel like I was missing out on Winnipeg evolving as a city, but just seeing people progress through life and birthdays and growing up and, you know, just like seeing all these situations that you don't really see behind closed doors. I know I have a great family for that, and I more or less feel that like I was just missing out on that. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
And it's crazy to think about how when you were in Winnipeg at first, you kind of feel like, oh, like I need to leave the nest, you know? I'm living in my parents' house. I'm in my early 20s. This is my time to kind of escape and go do my thing.
That classic, I hate my hometown.
Yeah.
And you don't really know how much you love your hometown
Until you
leave.
don't have it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then you come to Mohawk and those 4 years pass, and then all of a sudden you're itching to go back home and spend that time with your family. And that just goes to show how important relationships are to us as humans. It really does.
I know this one is kind of towards me, but it just kind of brought up in my head that Dan has grown up all his life living in Ontario. And what has it been, 2 years now that you moved up to Jasper?
About a year and a half, yeah,
About
close to 2.
A year and a half, close to 2. And just through the relationship that we had with Owen, Dan getting to rekindle with a lot of his friends and his family, it's really made him realize how much he misses it here in Ontario. When originally he left to Jasper, when he was just like, you know what, I've had enough of this, I just need to get myself out of a funk. And now we've been here for about a week. Yeah, like a week exactly. And, you know, there's things that have kind of come in place to the point where he doesn't really want to leave and he wants to come back and restart his life here for the relationships that he didn't really know that he would miss that much. So I think that's a proper thing to address for sure.
Yeah. You know, like moving out west for me was big with my whole head situation. Just kind of escaping. I felt like I was stuck, almost like that hometown syndrome where like, what am I doing? You know, it's the same thing in and out every day, same thing. So I moved out west into one of the most beautiful parts of the entire world, some people would argue. And now fast forward a year and a half later, I'm living a lifestyle I love. I'm in a place I love. It's beautiful, but I'm at the point now where I'm yearning to come back home because I have couple nieces and a nephew back here, and I'm, like you said, watching them grow up from Instagram, which stinks. I also have a huge support system that was able to bring me out west and get me to the point where I could move across the country. And then when I wasn't with them anymore, it's not the same.
Right.
Like, if I had that group of 40 people of my friends and family out there with me, I'd stay there my whole life.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, 100%. No doubt about it. But I don't have them out there, and it's bringing me back to the place that I was sick of.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of crazy to say that, like, a lot of people would argue that Jasper, Alberta would more or less be a little bit nicer than Hamilton, Ontario, and
Probably, yeah.
Amaranth, Orangeville, where you're kind of based. You know, you'd be silly to move away from there because the place is so beautiful. Your surroundings and the mountains and everything is so crazy. But at the end of the day, it's kind of clear to see between the both of us that what is really at the middle of our lives is the relationships that we're building with others and how that makes us feel and how that kind of develops us into people too. So,
because what are those experiences of living in a place like that if you're alone? Not necessarily alone, but when you're not surrounded by those that are important to you, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely just a lot to think about when you think of, you know, because like personally, I feel like Hamilton, Ontario has got Winnipeg, Manitoba beat. I hope people who are watching this aren't kicking their screen right now, but you know, everything's 45 minutes away. I'm going to Niagara Falls, Toronto, going to Buffalo, New York, just places upon places. Everything's 45 minutes away. And, you know, I did have a lot of good friendships out here. Friendships that I would honestly call people my brothers, Dan being one of them. And not that I'm like trying to put them on a pedestal or a podium, but I don't know, it just kind of makes you realize, you know, if you're going to be with your friends and if you could have the best time ever with them while you're there together and treat each other there like you're like brothers while you're there, it's going to keep going on through life, you know? So I think it's important to know that like the stability within friendships and whatnot is absolutely, you know, just the main drive through life. Absolutely. But anyways, yeah, we're hitting about on the 12-minute mark, so I think we should wrap this one up. Just want to say thank you again for a little part two.
Absolutely.
And I think we got Ruben coming through the door next, so we'll get him and his thoughts here.
Awesome.
Cheers.